Imagine writing a song in a tiny Dublin studio, selling it for the price of a used car, and watching it grow into an anthem that fills stadiums and bankrolls a superstar. That's the story behind Angels. In 1996, Irish songwriter Ray Heffernan took $7,500 to let a young, newly solo Robbie Williams record the tune.
And I feel that love is dead.
2 years later, Robbie was belting it out to 100,000 fans at Nebworth and cashing royalty checks big enough to buy a private island. Today, Angels is streamed, sung, and played somewhere on Earth every single minute, earning millions long after its writer cashed out. How did one late-night deal flip the fortunes of two men? In the next few minutes, we'll track the song's unlikely journey, Sunday morning hangover, record label battlefield, and chart-topping victory lap to see why you should never underestimate the value of your own work. Grab your headphones and let's dive in right now. It's Christmas week, 1996. Robbie Williams, freshly out of Take That and drifting between pubs, parties, and rehab appointments, flies to Dublin looking for a reset. One evening, he wanders into the Globe on George's Street and spots a bleached blonde local named Ray Heffernan. They bond over cheap lager and guitar talk. Robbie invites himself back to Ray's mum's house for an after-hours jam. By 3 a.m., the two are wedged on the sofa, trading chords. Ray plays a half-finished ballad he's been working on called An Angel instead. Robbie hums a new melody line and scrawls fresh lyrics on a takeaway menu. Both men think they've stumbled onto something, but they're too buzzed to care. Next morning, Robbie calls Irish impresario Lewis Walsh, who books them a cheap studio in Temple Bar. They cut a rough demo, Ray on acoustic, Robbie on scratch vocal, no drums, no strings, just 4 minutes of raw feeling caught on tape. The cassette lands in Robbie's backpack as he heads back to London to face record label meetings and mounting debts. Ray stays in Dublin, certain he'll never hear the track again. Yet, within months, the phone rings. Robbie's management wants the song for his solo album and offers $7,500 for full rights. Enough, Ray thinks, to clear his credit cards and buy some studio time of his own. He signs the waiver and mails it back, unaware he has just traded tomorrow's fortune for today's quick fix. The $7.5K buyout. Back in London, Robbie's new managers at IE Music loved the Dublin demo, but spotted a legal minefield. Ray Heffernan still owned half the tune. A court fight would stall Robbie's first solo album, so they reached for the checkbook. The offer that arrived in Ray's mailbox read like a lifeline: $7,500. Up front, tax-free, no royalties, no songwriting credit. All he had to do was sign a standard waiver saying the song was now 100% Robbie's. Ray was skint, living off pub gigs and teaching jobs, so the lump sum felt huge. Friend Rains warned him the track had promise, but unpaid bills spoke louder. He took the cash, paid down his visa, and booked a few days in a local studio for his own projects. In his words, "If I'd been handed big money back then, it probably would have ruined me." Robbie, meanwhile, breathed a sigh of relief. One signature had cleared the runway for his comeback. In later interviews, he justified the buyout, saying a court case would all have depended on how the judge got out of bed that morning. So cutting a check was simpler. The goodwill didn't last. When a podcast host asked Robbie about the song years later, he brushed off Ray's contribution and even branded him a fantasist. Ray fired back in the Irish press, hurt not so much by the lost millions as by the erasure of his name from the story. In the space of a few signatures, the Dublin co-write had turned into a one-man classic, on paper at least. The real test would come once Robbie and producer Guy Chambers tore the demo apart and rebuilt it for the charts. Robbie flew back to London with the Dublin cassette rattling in his bag. A few days later, he met producer-songwriter Guy Chambers at the tiny Matrix Maison Rouge studio in Fulham. Chambers liked the bones of the tune, but felt it needed a new liftoff. The two men sat at a battered upright piano, swapped out half the chords, and shaped a bigger chorus. Robbie later joked that the rewrite took about 25 minutes, half a cup of tea. The finished track kept Ray Heffernan's central idea, an everyday guardian angel, but Chambers layered in gospel-style keyboards and sweeping strings. Steve Power added a crisp drum loop, and Robbie cut the final vocal in a single afternoon. When the mix was done, Chrysalis Records still wasn't convinced. They wanted another upbeat single. Robbie and his managers insisted this ballad was the one. In the end, the band won. Angels hit UK stores on 1st December in '97.
I'm loving angels instead.
Radio programmers fell first. Within 10 days, every major FM station had it on heavy rotation. Sales followed. The single peaked at number 4 but hung around for months, logging 12 weeks in the top 10 and 27 weeks in the top 75, a far steadier performer than many chart toppers of the day. Fans took it to heart at weddings, funerals, and football terraces. Robbie closed almost every live show with it. Industry respect soon caught up with public love. Angels was shortlisted for an Ivor Novello Award in 1998, and a year later won Best Song Musically and Lyrically and Most Performed Work, the UK songwriting world's highest praise. The win didn't just validate Robbie's solo career, it cemented Angels as a modern standard, guaranteeing decades of airplay and royalty checks to come. By the end of 1998, the quiet-burning single had become Robbie Williams' calling card. UK sales alone cleared 1.16 million physical and download copies, a feat that put Angels on the decade-end bestseller list, even though it never hit number 1. Then the passive income engine kicked in. In 2005, a Music Choice poll of 45,000 Britons crowned it the song people most want played at their funeral, guaranteeing a steady trickle of performance royalties from churches, crematoria, and live tributes every single week. Streaming supercharged those earnings. As of July 2025, Angels has racked up more than 650 million streams on Spotify alone, around 2,000 songs, 3 million in master recording payouts at today's average per stream rate, before publishing and sync fees. Factor in Apple Music, YouTube, and Amazon, and the lifetime digital count likely tops the 1 billion mark, nudging the song into the same royalty class as many modern chart toppers. And that's just the passive side. Because Angels closes almost every Robbie Williams concert, it sits at the heart of his touring business. The 2022-23 XISU Tour, celebrating 25 years of solo hits, grossed $75 million across Europe, Asia, and Australia, throwing roughly $22 million straight into Williams's personal pay packet. Merchandise, DVD rights, and a Netflix-licensed Nebworth documentary add more zeros that accountants file under derived from Angels, setlist anchor. All told, industry trackers put Robbie's personal wealth at about $300 million to $140 million in mid-2025. While that fortune also reflects 80 million album sales and a record-smashing 80 million EMI deal in 2002, insiders still credit Angels with keeping his career aloft long enough to negotiate those windfalls. Ray Heffernan, meanwhile, never sees a penny of this cascade. At every royalty statement, the spreadsheet shows 100% credit to Williams Chambers because of one $7.5K check signed back in 1997. The contrast is brutal. A song that can buy private jets for one co-writer couldn't even cover the other's rent 3 decades later. "30 years on, the man who first sang Angels in a Dublin bedsit is living a very different life. Ray Heffernan now calls the quiet shores of Lake Orda in northern Italy home. fronting a local 7-piece called the Grand Canal Band and releasing indie records like New Dress woven to small but loyal crowds day to day. Ray earns his rent by teaching English and Italian through songwriting workshops. He literally turns verb tenses into verses so teenagers remember them. The job keeps him creative and, crucially, keeps him away from the self-destruct button he once hit as a broke musician. "If big money had dropped on me in the 90s, it would have been my downfall," he told an interviewer in 2023. What still stings isn't the lost cash, it's the lost credit. Ray would love nothing more than to stand beside Robbie Williams and accept an Ivor Novello certificate, acknowledging his co-write, the award Robbie picked up alone back in 1999. Until that happens, he keeps his own version, Angels Instead, in the set list, proudly explaining its backstory to anyone who asks. These days, the pub tales have softened into life lessons he shares with students and fellow songwriters. Never sign away your rights in a hurry. Always keep a clean copy of your demos, and remember that recognition can matter more than royalties. It's a quieter destiny than headlining Nebworth, but for Ray Heffernan, the music and the classroom is still paying the bills. Ray Heffernan's story isn't a one-off. It fits a long line of deals where creators traded ownership for quick cash and lived to regret it. In 1985, Michael Jackson snapped up the Beatles' publishing catalog for about $47 million. Paul McCartney has spent decades trying and failing to buy back the songs he wrote as a 20-something. A decade later, R&B trio TLC topped the charts with Crazy Sexy Cool, yet took home barely 20 cents per album after recoupable costs buried them in debt. Even megastars can get burned. Prince went to war with Warner Brothers in the 1990s, scrawling slave on his face until he finally clawed back his masters in 2014. And in 2025, Taylor Swift closed a 6-year saga by paying hundreds of millions to regain the master tapes Scooter Braun bought without her consent, after first re-recording every album to devalue the originals. The moral? Copyright is the lifetime pension plan of the creative world. A single signature can forfeit decades of income, or if you hold firm, secure generational wealth. Ray Heffernan's $7.5K decision shows how thin that line can be. So, what can we learn from a $7,500 pub napkin deal that grew into a billion-stream anthem? First, a copyright signature is forever. It will outlive record labels, streaming apps, and even the artists themselves. Second, a single song can bankroll an entire career if you still own a piece of it when the royalty statements land. And finally, recognition matters just as much as money. Ray Heffernan may not crave private jets, but he still wants his name on the plaque. The next time you're tempted to trade your tune for quick cash, remember the night two strangers jammed on a sofa in Dublin and wrote Angels. Sometimes your rough demo isn't just a song, it's your future pension plan. Liked this deep dive? Hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. If you got value from today's video, give it a thumbs up and drop a comment telling us which music industry tale you want next. Share the video with a friend who loves a good behind-the-scenes story. Let's grow this community together.